My name is Emily Carter. I'm 25. Last Tuesday at 6:47 a.m., I was standing in the middle of Hope Baptist Church's parking lot, holding 5 pages of sealed medical records, while my father told 30 members of the prayer breakfast committee that I was still struggling with my substance issues and needed their prayers. The temperature was 38 degrees. I was wearing my hospital scrubs because I just finished a 12-hour night shift. My hands were shaking so hard the papers rustled. Emily's been clean for 6 months now, my father said, his voice carrying that special gentle tone he used when he wanted people to think he was a saint. We're so proud of her progress, aren't we, Susan? My mother nodded. She wouldn't look at me. I'd never touched drugs in my life. Dad, I said. My voice came out too quiet. That's not... Sweetheart. He turned to me with that smile, the one that made strangers think he hung the moon. Why don't you head home and get some rest? You look exhausted. We can talk about your counseling schedule later. Mrs. Patterson from the women's ministry touched my shoulder. You're so brave, honey. Recovery is a journey. I wasn't recovering. I was a registered nurse who'd just pulled a double shift because 2 coworkers called in sick. But I could see it in their eyes. They'd already decided what they believed. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there, because what happened next changed everything. Let me take you back 17 years to when I was 8 years old. Grandma Dot's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and butter. She lived in the old farmhouse on Oak Ridge Road, the one with the wraparound porch and the ancient maple tree out front. Every Saturday morning, she'd make apple fritters from scratch, and I'd sit at her yellow formica table doing my homework while she worked. Emily Bug, she said one morning, wiping flour off her hands. Come here a second. I remember she had this look on her face. Not scared exactly. Worried. She knelt down so we were eye level. If anything ever happens at home, anything that scares you or hurts you, you can call me, day or night. Even if it's 3 in the morning, even if your daddy says not to, okay? I nodded, not really understanding. Say it back to me. I can call you any time, I whispered. She pulled me close. She smelled like ivory soap and vanilla extract. That's my girl. You remember that. I'll always answer. I didn't know then that she'd already called Child Protective Services once, that someone from the county came out, talked to my father for 20 minutes in his office at the church, and closed the case without ever speaking to me or Noah. My father knew everybody in our town of 14,000 people. The CPS worker went to Hope Baptist. So did the police chief. So did the county judge. The first time my father really destroyed me, I was 16 years old. I'd been working part-time at Muller's Pharmacy on Hawthorne Street for 3 months. Mrs. Muller let me work the register after school and on Saturdays. I was saving everything, $8.75 an hour, minus taxes. The money went into a checking account my mom helped me open. By November, I had $1,247. I was going to use it for nursing school applications. I'd already talked to my guidance counselor, Ms. Chen, about community college programs. She said with my grades, I could get scholarships. But I needed the application fees, the entrance exam costs, the deposit. I kept the acceptance letter from Riverside Community College's nursing program hidden in my locker. I'd had it sent to a P.O. box I'd opened with my first paycheck. The program started in January. Early admission, my ticket out. On December 3rd, I came home from my pharmacy shift at 6:30 p.m. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. My father was sitting at the table. The bank statements were spread out in front of him, all of them. My mother stood by the sink, washing dishes that were already clean. Sit down, Emily. Something in his voice made my stomach drop. Dad? What's... I said sit down. I sat. He pushed a printout across the table, my checking account statement. $1,247.83, he read aloud. That's a lot of money for a 16-year-old. Where'd you get it? I earned it, at the pharmacy. Really? He leaned back in his chair. And you didn't think to mention to your mother and me that you were hoarding money? I wasn't hoarding it. I was saving. For what? The way he asked made me hesitate, like he already knew, like this was a trap. College applications. Silence. My mother's hands stopped moving in the sink. College applications, my father repeated. To where? Riverside Community College, their nursing program. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You applied to college without asking permission. I'm 16, Ms. Chen said. Ms. Chen doesn't make decisions for this family. I do. He stood up, walked to where I was sitting, put his hand on my shoulder. His grip was tight enough to hurt. You know what this looks like, Emily? To me? To your mother? It looks like you're planning to abandon us. Like we're not good enough for you. That's not. Did you apply for financial aid? Yes. Using our tax information? I nodded. So you forged our signatures on federal documents? No, there's a dependent student section. I just needed. You needed to ask. His voice dropped to that quiet register that meant he was furious. You needed to respect this family. Instead, you went behind our backs. You lied. You manipulated. You stole. I didn't steal anything. That money in your account. You earned it while living under our roof, eating our food, using our electricity. That makes it family money, which makes what you did theft. My face burned so hot I could feel my pulse in my temples. Robert, my mother said softly, maybe we should. Susan. One word. She went quiet. My father pulled out his phone, called someone. Hi, yes, this is Robert Carter. I need to close a checking account for my daughter, Emily. Under 18, so I'm the custodian. Yes, I'll hold. I sat there while he drained my account. All $1,247.83. Transferred it to his own checking account for safekeeping. You'll get it back when you've learned some maturity, he said, and some respect. I never saw that money again. But that wasn't the worst part. 3 days later, I was called into Principal Morrison's office. Ms. Chen was there. So was my father. Emily, Principal Morrison said carefully, your father has expressed some concerns about your recent behavior. I looked at Ms. Chen. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He's shared some troubling information about possible substance use. My entire body went cold. That's not true, I said. Emily Bug. My father's voice was so gentle, so sad. I know you're scared, but lying will only make this harder. I'm not lying. I've never. We found marijuana in your room, he said. The room tilted. We were worried when we saw the behavior changes, the secrecy, the hiding money. So we did what any concerned parents would do. We searched your room, and we found a baggie under your mattress. That's impossible. My hands were shaking. I wouldn't. We already disposed of it, my father continued. We didn't want to get the police involved, but we can't ignore this, so we're going to get you help. Principal Morrison looked pained. Emily, if this is true, we need to. It's not true, my voice cracked. He's lying. He planted. Enough. My father stood. I think we all know that denial is part of addiction. Emily, I love you. Your mother loves you. We're going to support you through this. But you need to accept that you have a problem. Ms. Chen finally looked at me. There was something in her expression, doubt maybe, but she didn't say anything. That afternoon, my father withdrew me from Mueller's pharmacy, told Mrs. Mueller I was dealing with some issues and needed to focus on my health. By the end of the week, half the town had heard I'd been caught with drugs. The nursing program acceptance letter stayed hidden in my locker. I never answered it. The deposit deadline passed. I spent the next 2 years in that house finishing high school while my father told anyone who'd listen about his troubled daughter who was working through some things. Youth group kids stopped inviting me places. Teachers watched me differently. My mother said nothing. Noah was 13, still too young to understand what was happening and terrified of becoming the next target. The day I turned 18, I moved into a basement apartment on the east side of town, $425 a month. I got my job back at Muller's Pharmacy. Mrs. Muller never quite believed the story, I think, and I applied to Riverside's nursing program again. This time, I got in on my own, no parental signatures required. I worked 30 hours a week at the pharmacy, took 15 credit hours, and slept about 4 hours a night for 2 years. The pharmacology professor, Dr. Sharma, let me study in her office between shifts. I graduated with a 3.7 GPA and passed my RN licensing exam on the first try. I got hired at Mercy Community Hospital in the next county over. Started at $28.50 an hour. Worked every overtime shift they'd give me. By the time I was 24, I was pulling 60-hour weeks in the ER, and I'd saved $14,000. My father told everyone I'd abandoned the family, left them high and dry, broke my poor mother's heart. I hadn't abandoned them. I'd survived them. But I still went to Hope Baptist every other Sunday, because not going would have proven his narrative true. I sat in the back row, left during the closing hymn, avoided conversation. Until the Wednesday morning I ran into him at the Kroger. I was picking up groceries before a night shift, 7:15 a.m. The store was mostly empty. I had a cart with yogurt, bananas, the kind of healthy food you eat when you work too much to cook real meals. He was in the cereal aisle. Emily. I should have turned around, should have walked away. But I was tired, and I'd just worked 5 12-hour shifts in 6 days, and I didn't have the energy to run. Hi, Dad. You look thin. Are you eating? I'm fine. He picked up a box of Raisin Bran, studied it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Your mother worries about you. You never call. I've been busy. Too busy for family. He shook his head, disappointed, always disappointed. That nursing job of yours? They working you too hard? It's fine. I heard you were in the ER the other night when the Patterson boy came in. Car accident. I'd been there. 16-year-old kid. Broken femur. Scared out of his mind. I'd held his hand while we got the IV in. His mother said you were very kind. I waited. She also said you looked exhausted, shaky hands. She was concerned you might be. He trailed off meaningfully. Well, back to old habits. There it was. I'm not using anything, Dad. I never was. Of course, sweetheart. I believe you. I'm just telling you what people are saying. You know how this town talks. My fingers tightened on the cart handle. People talk because you give them things to talk about. Emily, his voice hardened. I've spent 7 years defending you, telling people you're doing better, working hard, turning your life around. Don't make me a liar. You already are one. The words came out before I could stop them. His face changed. The kindly father mask slipped for just a second, and I saw what was underneath. Cold, calculating, dangerous. Be very careful how you speak to me. Or what? Or people might start wondering if you're stable enough to be working with patients. He smiled. I'd hate for someone to file a concern with the state nursing board, but if I thought you were a danger to yourself or others. My stomach dropped into my shoes. Have a nice day, Emily. Tell your mother I said hello. He walked away, left me standing there in the cereal aisle with my cart full of food I couldn't afford and a threat I couldn't fight. That night, I pulled a 12-hour shift in the ER. Mrs. Caldwell, the charge nurse, noticed I was off. You okay, Carter? Fine, just tired. She studied me for a second. You ever need to talk? My door's open. I nodded, didn't trust myself to speak. At 3 a.m., during a lull, I sat in the supply closet and cried for 4 minutes. Then I washed my face, fixed my ponytail, and went back to work. 3 weeks later, I was restocking IV supplies when Dr. Morrison, one of the ER attendings, pulled me aside. Emily, can I talk to you for a minute? My heart started racing. Did I do something wrong? No, nothing like that. He looked uncomfortable. I just wanted you to know there was a call to hospital admin last week. Anonymous. Someone claiming you might be impaired at work. The floor dropped out from under me. I told them it was ridiculous, Dr. Morrison continued. I've worked with you for a year. You're one of the best nurses we have, but protocol requires documentation, so they're going to do a random drug screen, probably sometime in the next month. I wanted to give you a heads up. I don't use drugs. I know, this is just covering their asses. You'll pass, and it'll be over. But it wouldn't be over. My father would make sure it was never over. I took the drug test the following Tuesday. Passed, obviously. But the rumor had already spread through the hospital. Whispers in the break room, concerned looks from coworkers. Mrs. Caldwell called me into her office. Carter, sit down. I sat. I'm not going to beat around the bush. There's been talk. I've shut it down when I hear it, but I can't be everywhere. So I need you to understand something. She leaned forward. I've been an ER nurse for 28 years. I've seen every kind of impaired colleague there is. You're not one of them. You're overworked and underpaid and too dedicated for your own good. But you're not using. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Good. Now get back to work. We've got 6 patients boarding and 1 ambulance inbound. That was the day something clicked inside me. I was 24 years old, working 60 hours a week to build a life my father was systematically destroying from 30 miles away. I'd spent 8 years running, hiding, trying to prove I was okay. I was done running. That weekend, I drove to Grandma Dot's house. She was in her garden, kneeling by the tomato plants. 72 years old, and still doing everything herself. She looked up when she heard my car. Emily Bug. I'd been holding it together, but the second she said my name, something broke. I told her everything. The Kroger encounter, the hospital call, the constant grinding fear that he'd find a way to take my nursing license. She listened, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she stood up slowly, brushed dirt off her knees, and said, "Come inside. We need to talk." Her kitchen still smelled like cinnamon. She made coffee, the real kind, percolated, not drip. Then she sat across from me at that same yellow formica table. "Your father is a dangerous man," she said. "Always has been." I'd never heard her say it out loud before. "When you were 8, I called CPS. Did you know that?" I shook my head. "I saw bruises on your back at the church picnic. You said you fell, but I've raised 3 children. I know what belt marks look like." Her hands were shaking slightly around her coffee cup. "They sent someone out. Nice lady. Talked to Robert for 20 minutes in his office. He showed her your soccer schedule, your straight A report card, the family photo on his desk. She left. Case closed." "Why didn't you?" "Because I had no proof. No witnesses. Just an old woman's word against the assistant pastor of Hope Baptist Church." She looked at me. "I'm telling you this so you understand. Your father didn't just start with you. This is who he's always been. Susan's lived it for 30 years. You and Noah lived it all your lives. But nobody saw it because he's very, very good at looking perfect." "So what do I do?" She was quiet for a long moment. "You wait," she finally said. "You keep your head down. You document everything. And you wait for him to make a mistake. What if he never does?" "He will." She reached across the table, took my hand. "Men like Robert always do, because they think they're untouchable, and that's when they get sloppy." I wanted to believe her, but I'd been waiting my whole life for justice, and it hadn't come yet. I drove back to my apartment that night, went to work the next morning, kept my head down, documented everything like Grandma Dot said. But I had no idea that my mother was doing the same thing. Susan Carter had been married to my father for 28 years. She'd stood by him through everything, let him drain my college savings, said nothing when he called me a drug addict in front of the church, watched him terrorize Noah for 6 years after I left. But 2 months after my Kroger conversation, something changed. Noah was 20 now. He'd graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA, got into Ohio State's engineering program, had a full scholarship offer. My father said no. "You're needed here," he told Noah at the dinner table one night. "Family business, church responsibilities. Your mother needs help." Noah tried to argue. My father backhanded him across the face so hard he fell out of his chair. My mother was washing dishes. She heard the sound, the thud of Noah hitting the floor. My father's voice saying, "Get up, stop being dramatic." She turned off the water, pulled her phone out of her apron pocket, opened the voice memo app, and pressed record. She recorded everything for the next 3 months. Every threat, every insult. Every time my father hit Noah, or shoved him, or told him he was worthless. Every time he talked about me, about his troubled daughter, who abandoned the family and was probably using again. My mother recorded 47 separate incidents, 18 hours of audio. She didn't tell me, didn't tell Noah, just kept recording, kept backing up the files to a cloud drive my father didn't know existed, and waited. Meanwhile, my father had a new plan. In February, the Hope Baptist Church Council voted to give him a special recognition. Man of the Year. They were going to honor him at the annual fellowship dinner for his 30 years of faithful service and family leadership. 200 people were invited. The ceremony was scheduled for Friday, March 21st at 7 p.m. in the church fellowship hall. My father called me 2 weeks before. "Emily, I'd like you to be there." "I'm working." "Switch shifts. This is important." I almost said no, but something in his tone made me pause. "Why do you want me there?" "Because despite everything, you're still my daughter. I'm being honored for family leadership. It would mean a lot if you were present. Show people that our family is strong, that we've healed." Translation: I needed to be there to validate his image. "I'll think about it." "It's a yes or no question, Emily." "Then no." Silence on the line. "I see." His voice went cold. "Well, I suppose that tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. But just so you're aware, I've been asked to give a speech about family values. I was planning to talk about overcoming challenges, forgiveness, second chances. I hope I don't have to mention how difficult it's been to watch you struggle. Don't you dare. Then be there." He hung up. I called Noah that night. He was living at home, trapped between his scholarship deadline and our father's threats. "He's making me introduce him," Noah said. His voice was flat, dead. "I have to stand up there and talk about what a great father he's been." "No, you don't." I don't have a choice. If I don't do this, he'll what? Hit you? He's already doing that." "He'll drain my college fund." I went very still. "What college fund?" "The one Grandma Dot set up, $12,000. She told me last year. It's in my name, but he's the secondary beneficiary. If I don't cooperate, he says he'll claim I'm mentally unstable and get control of it. He knows a lawyer who'll back him up." Of course he did. "Noah, listen to me. Don't do anything yet. Just hold on, okay?" "For what? There's no way out." "There's always a way out. We just haven't found it yet." But I was lying. I had no plan, no leverage, just a 25-year-old nurse with $14,000 in savings and a family that was slowly being strangled. That weekend, I went to see Grandma Dot again. She was sitting on her porch in the late afternoon sun. She looked older than she had 2 months ago, more tired. "I'm going to that ceremony," I told her. "I don't know what I'm going to do when I get there, but I can't let him use Noah as a prop." She nodded slowly. "Come inside." There's something I need to give you. We went into her house, into the living room, where an old oak desk sat by the window. She opened the bottom drawer, pulled out a manila envelope, thick, sealed with red wax. What is this? Insurance. She handed it to me. Don't open it until the ceremony. Don't tell anyone you have it. Not Noah, not your mother, not anybody. Just bring it with you. Grandma. Emily Bug. She looked at me with clear, steady eyes. I've been waiting for this moment for 17 years. Since that CPS worker left our house without talking to you. I told you your father would make a mistake. This ceremony, where he stands up in front of 200 people and claims to be Father of the Year, that's his mistake. My hands were shaking as I took the envelope. What's in here? The truth, she smiled, and enough evidence to back it up. I wanted to open it right there, but she stopped me. Not yet. Wait until Friday. Wait until you're sitting in that fellowship hall, listening to him lie. Then you'll know what to do. I drove home with the envelope on my passenger seat. It weighed maybe a pound. It felt like a bomb. The next 5 days were the longest of my life. I went to work, pulled my shifts, came home to my tiny apartment, and stared at that envelope sitting on my kitchen counter. On Thursday, my mother called. Emily, I know you're working tomorrow night, but I'm going. Silence. You are? Yes, I'm going. Oh, her voice cracked. Oh, that's good. Your father will be so pleased. I'm not doing it for him, Mom. I know. Another pause. Emily, there's something I need to tell you. About tomorrow night. About what's going to happen. What? Just be ready for anything, okay? Mom, what are you… She hung up. I stood there with my phone in my hand, my heart racing. Something was happening. Something bigger than I understood. Friday, March 21st, arrived. I worked a half shift at the hospital, got off at 3 p.m., went home, showered, put on the one nice dress I owned. Navy blue, knee-length, the kind you wear to job interviews. I pulled my hair back into a neat bun. No makeup except mascara. I looked like someone who could stand up in front of 200 people and not fall apart. I picked up Grandma Dot's envelope from my counter, held it for a long moment. Then I opened it. Inside were 3 things. The first was a letter, handwritten on lined paper in Grandma Dot's neat cursive. It started with, Dear Emily Bug, if you're reading this, then it's time. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop running. Time to show everyone who Robert Carter really is. My hands shook as I kept reading. The second item was a flash drive. A post-it note stuck to it read, 18 hours, 47 recordings. Susan's been busy. The third item made me sit down on my floor. It was a copy of the CPS report from when I was 8 years old. The one I'd never seen. The investigator's notes were right there. Subject exhibited defensive body language when discussing father. Observed flinching when father entered room. Recommended follow-up home visit. Stamped across the bottom in red ink. Case closed, insufficient evidence. And underneath that, in someone's handwriting, RC called county supervisor, requested case closure, supervisor approved. My father had killed the investigation, called in a favor, made it disappear. I read Grandma Dot's letter 3 times. Then I put everything back in the envelope, got in my car, and drove to Hope Baptist Church. The parking lot was full. I had to park on the street 3 blocks away. I walked in the early evening light, holding that envelope against my chest like armor. The fellowship hall was packed. Folding chairs in neat rows. A podium at the front with a microphone, a banner behind it reading, Faith Family Service, honoring Robert Carter. I slipped in the back, sat in the last row. Noah was up front, sitting with my mother. He looked sick. My mother looked scared. My father was greeting people, shaking hands, smiling that perfect smile. At 7:03 p.m., Pastor Mitchell took the podium. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're here tonight to honor a man who has given 30 years of faithful service to our church and our community. The speech went on for 10 minutes. I didn't hear most of it. I was too busy opening the envelope in my lap, pulling out the flash drive, and putting it in my pocket. The letter stayed in the envelope. And now, I'd like to invite Robert's son, Noah, to come up and share a few words about his father. Noah stood, walked to the podium like he was walking to his execution. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold it. "My father," he began. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. "My father is—" He stopped, looked down at the paper, then out at the crowd, then at my mother. She gave him the smallest nod. Noah folded the paper, put it in his pocket. "My father is not the man you think he is," he said. The room went dead silent. "For 20 years, he's beaten me. Beaten my mother. Beaten my sister. For 20 years, he's told us we were worthless, stupid embarrassments. For 20 years, he's made us lie to protect his reputation. And we did it because we were scared. Because he's got this town in his pocket. Because nobody would believe us." People were starting to murmur. My father stood up. "Noah, sit down." "No." Noah's voice was steady now. "I'm done sitting down." "You're having an episode. You're not well. There's a recording," my mother said. She was standing now too, pulling out her phone. "There are 47 recordings," she continued. 18 hours of audio. Every threat, every insult, every time you hit our son, every time you called Emily a drug addict even though you knew she'd never touched anything, every time you lied about this family to protect yourself." My father's face went white. "Susan, put the phone away." "No." Her voice was shaking, but she didn't back down. "I'm done protecting you." I stood up. Every eye in the room turned to me. I walked down the center aisle. Slowly. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I reached the podium. Noah stepped aside. My mother was crying silently. I pulled out the flash drive, set it on the podium. "I'm Emily Carter," I said into the microphone. My voice was calm, steady, nothing like how I felt inside. "I'm 25 years old. I'm a registered nurse at Mercy Community Hospital. I work 60-hour weeks because when I was 16, my father drained my college savings account, $1,247.83, and told everyone I was on drugs to discredit me before I could tell anyone what he really was." I pulled out the CPS report, held it up. "When I was 8 years old, my grandmother called Child Protective Services because she saw belt marks on my back. The investigator recommended a follow-up visit, but my father called the county supervisor and had the case closed. That supervisor goes to this church." I set the report down, pulled out Grandma Dot's letter. "This is from my grandmother, Dorothy Hayes. She's 72 years old. She's sitting in the third row. She's been waiting 17 years to see this happen." I looked at my father. He was frozen, calculating, trying to figure out how to spin this. "You're sick," he said finally. "Emily, you need help. This is exactly the kind of paranoid—" "There's a recording," I repeated. "Of you threatening Noah. Of you hitting him. Of you admitting you made up the drug story. Would you like to hear it?" Silence. "I have 47 recordings," my mother said again. Her voice was stronger now. "I recorded you for 3 months. Every single time you hurt our son. Every time you talked about Emily. Every time you threatened to destroy anyone who stood up to you." I pulled out my phone, connected to the fellowship hall's Bluetooth speaker, hit play on the first recording. My father's voice filled the room. "You're worthless. You know that? Your sister was worthless and you're just like her. The only difference is she was smart enough to leave before I broke her completely." A sound, a thud. Noah's voice. "Dad, please. Get up. Stop being weak. This is what happens when you disappoint me. I stopped the playback. 4 minutes and 22 seconds. That's all it took. Mrs. Patterson had her hand over her mouth. The county supervisor was staring at my father like she was seeing him for the first time. Pastor Mitchell looked like he might be sick. My father looked at the crowd, at the shock on their faces, at his perfect reputation crumbling in real time. He did exactly what I knew he'd do. He tried to double down. "This is a setup," he said. "My daughter has been unstable for years. My wife has been under incredible stress. They've clearly conspired to—" "I have hospital records," I said, "from every shift I've worked for the past year. Drug test results from 2 months ago. Performance reviews. Testimony from Dr. Morrison, Mrs. Caldwell, and 6 other colleagues who will verify I've never been impaired at work. I have my original nursing school acceptance letter from when I was 16. The one you told me I'd imagined. I have bank statements showing the $1,247.83 you took. I have Mrs. Mueller's employee records showing you withdrew me from work without my consent." I set 5 pages of documents on the podium. I have a work permit signed by my high school counselor, Ms. Chen. I have my current RN license. I have payroll records from Mercy Community Hospital. I have ID badge swipe logs proving I was at work during every single time you claimed I was struggling or using. I looked at him. "I have everything, because you taught me to keep receipts." He stared at me. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. Grandma Dot stood up in the 3rd row. "I called CPS in 2008, she said loudly. "I saw bruises. I reported them. The investigator was about to recommend removing the children. And then Robert made a phone call. Case closed." I've lived with that guilt for 17 years. I opened a 529 education account for Noah 5 years ago because I knew Robert would try to control him through money, just like he did with Emily. I've been documenting everything, waiting for him to go too far. She looked around the room. "He just did." Pastor Mitchell cleared his throat. "Robert, I think you should step down from the podium." My father didn't move. "Robert." He finally walked off, sat down. His face was blank, emptied out. I stood at that podium for another 10 seconds, looked at the crowd, at the people who'd believed him, who'd spread his lies, who'd looked at me like I was broken. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here for the truth. Everything I've said can be verified. Everything my mother recorded can be authenticated. My father spent 20 years building a reputation on our silence. That silence ends now." I picked up my documents, walked off the podium, walked out of that fellowship hall with my mother and Noah right behind me. Grandma Dot was waiting in the parking lot. "Proud of you, Emily Bug." I couldn't speak, just fell into her arms and cried. We didn't go to the police that night. We went to Grandma Dot's house, sat in her kitchen, drank coffee. My mother held Noah's hand. "I should have done this years ago," she whispered. "I should have protected you." "You did," Noah said. "You recorded everything. You kept us safe." She cried. We all did. The next morning, Pastor Mitchell called. The church council had met in emergency session. My father was removed from all leadership positions. They were conducting an internal investigation. 3 days later, the county reopened the CPS case from 2008. The supervisor who'd closed it retired. By the end of the month, my father had resigned from his job at the church. He and my mother separated. She filed for divorce. Noah enrolled at Ohio State. His scholarship was intact. Grandma Dot's $12,000 paid for his housing. The church women's ministry raised $8,400 for my education fund, a scholarship in my name for anyone who'd overcome family abuse. My father moved to Kentucky. I heard he got a job at a small church there. I don't know if they know his story. I don't care. I never got my $1,247.83 back. But I got something better. I got my voice back. 6 months later, I'm still at Mercy Community Hospital, still pulling 60-hour weeks. but now I also volunteer 2 Saturdays a month at a domestic violence resource center. My apartment is still tiny, but I put up photos now. One of Grandma Dot and me at her kitchen table. One of Noah at his college graduation this past May. One of my RN license. I planted a small herb garden on my windowsill. Basil and rosemary. They're growing. My mother comes over for dinner sometimes. We're learning to talk to each other. It's slow, hard, but we're trying. Noah calls me every Sunday. We don't talk about our father much. We talk about his engineering classes, about the girl he's dating, about how mom's doing. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Grandma Dot. Dear Emily Bug, I knew you could do it. I knew you were strong enough. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you sooner. But I'm not sorry for waiting until you were ready. You were ready. All my love, Grandma P.S. I'm giving you the farmhouse. It's in the will. Your father doesn't know. When I'm gone, it's yours. You and Noah. A place where nobody can lock you out ever again. I read it 3 times. Then I called her. Grandma, you can't. I already did. It's done. Now stop arguing with me and come over for apple fritters. So I did. If you're reading this and you've ever had to choose between silence and truth, I want you to know the truth is terrifying. It costs everything. People won't believe you at first. They'll tell you you're wrong, you're confused, you're the problem. But silence costs more. Silence costs your voice, your dignity, your future. Silence is the price you pay for someone else's comfort. And you don't owe anyone that price. I'm not going to tell you it gets easier. It doesn't. Not really. There are still days when I see a man who looks like my father in the grocery store and my hands start shaking. There are still nights when I wake up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, convinced I'm still 16 years old and trapped. But I'm not trapped anymore, and if you're trapped right now, please hear me. Document everything. Find your people. Wait for the right moment. And when that moment comes, speak. If you've ever had to stand up to someone the world thinks is perfect, type, I spoke up in the comments. Or if you're still finding your courage, type, I'm still fighting. Both are brave. Both matter. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.